Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to install Kali Linux onto VirtualBox. So if you haven't installed VirtualBox yet, please look at the show notes to get the link on the video tutorial on how to install VirtualBox, so that way you have a complete penetration testing lab environment for your pen test environment and practicing for the CompTIA Security Plus labs. So the first thing we need to do is get our companion guide. You can find that in the show notes below as well. Also, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel and ensure you never miss any new videos. Okay, so we have our companion guide. The first step is to go to kali.org and navigate to the download section. So we're at kali.org. We're at the download section. So I'm going to click on that and also select my checkbox to say that that is done on our checklist. It says select recommended under the virtual machine option. So I'm going to select recommended under virtual machine. Verify that that has been completed as well. And it says choose the appropriate version of Kali Linux for our system. If we're unsure, select the 64-bit version. So you have the option of a 32-bit or a 64-bit. My guess is that you have a 64-bit. And if you do, you're going to download the ISO image, this little arrow here in VirtualBox. Now notice that there are different virtual machines here, or I should say hypervisors. There's VMware, there's Hyper-V. We're using VirtualBox. Be sure to select the right one. We click on the download and it clicks on and starts the dialog box, and it goes automatically into my downloads folder. So I'm going to click save. And while that's downloading, it's going to take a while. I'm going to select my checkbox and make sure that I have done all of the action items under the download Kali Linux. So that took about 4 minutes to download the 2.7 gig file over here from Kali Linux, maybe a little bit less. I didn't have an exact counter, but I do see that it is in my downloads folder. So in my browser on the lower left side here, I can go immediately into Finder, and it's going to open up my downloads folder. This is VirtualBox from the previous exercise. This is the extension pack, so I encourage you to do that as well. And it says over here in the instructions that I should extract the file, and I can use 7-zip to do that. If you are on Windows, you can use 7-zip. You can download. There's a link to that there, so you can go ahead and download it. So I can use an archive utility that I have with Mac. I'm going to archive this utility, and it's going to extract the compressed files, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. I expect this to be done in about a minute or two. So that took a couple of minutes. Mileage may vary depending on your computer, networking speed, processor, so on and so forth. So I see that my Kali Linux download has been extracted. I have the files here. I'm just going to toggle to take a look at the VBox and VDI, which is the files that we're going to need. And if I go down here, it says I can extract that. So we're going to check that off as something that we've done. I'm going to close the downloads folder. I don't need that anymore. And it says go ahead and launch VirtualBox. So I'm going to Alt-Tab. That's basically just, as we mentioned, just Alt-Tabbing. And I'm going to go to VirtualBox. And I see VirtualBox here. And I have VirtualBox started. Now with VirtualBox started, this is a clean install, and we're picking up where we last left off in the previous exercise where we installed the extension pack. Now you want to make sure you're on the welcome screen here. So the welcome screen sort of looks like this, where you have your preferences. You can import and export virtual machines or appliances. You can create new instances, or you can add virtual boxes. Now this may look a little bit different because you could be installing this on Windows or Linux or Solaris, but the concept stays the same, and that's an important piece. We teach concepts in this video series, not steps. So the specific steps are helpful to guide you, but it's more about the concept here where we're adding a VBox. So I'm going to check off Launch VirtualBox. It says select Add. When we get here, select Add, this portion here, this big plus sign, and we're going to look for our VBox file. So this is important, the .vbox file. So that VBox file was in my downloads folder. We don't want this in the VMs. I'm going to go into my downloads folder and find out where that is. And we have a bunch of files here. I'm going to say okay, that's fine. And in my downloads folder, I have a VBox file. I'm going to click open, and great. It opened the VBox file, so I'm going to select that as checked off. And it says we can take a look at the settings, and we're just going to quickly eyeball these settings. Now, most of the times you can accept the defaults, except for me, I don't have two processors on my machine. I have a single processor machine. I'm going to select system here, and in processor, I'm going to knock that back down to 1. I click OK, and for the rest of them, I'm just going to eyeball them. The display seems fine, storage seems fine, audio not super important, networking is going to be network address translation. We're okay with that. Shared folders we develop later. And here's the important piece here. You want to make note of the username, which is Callie, and the password is Callie. So I'm going to go ahead and check this off as being done. And it says once we're happy with the settings, we can go and hit the start button, and we're going to fire up this VM. So I'm going to click start, and I'm going to select done in my companion guide, and we're going to watch the VM start up. Okay, so that took a couple of minutes, not too long. And I'm going to do a couple of things before we scroll down. For starters, I'm going to give myself a little bit more real estate. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And if you go into the display settings here, there's a number of options here. So you have video memory, we have screen size, we have a number of options here. The one that I'm looking for is the screen size. And it says virtual screen. It's scaled to 100. I want that to be scaled to 200%. So that way it's a little bit bigger. We're going to scroll down, and it says remember that the default username for Callie is Callie and the default password is Callie. So we're going to head and enter that in. So it's Callie, and we should see that expand in a moment. And while that's happening, I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger, and we're going to make it occupy the right side of our screen because I don't need the download or the website anymore. And this is going to be Kali Linux coming on the side here as it starts up. So this looks pretty good. And with Kali fully started, we're going to go ahead and do some post-installation setup. So it says after the installation completes and we reboot the virtual machine, we will get the Kali Linux login screen, and we have the password, and this is true. Now we're going to update the password here. When I say the password, I should say the operating system. So there's a couple of ways to do this. First and foremost, we want to get into a terminal screen, and I can go over here in the upper left hand corner, and I can just type in terminal, or I can pick it from here, and it's going to take me to a terminal screen. The terminal is the command line. We will spend a lot of time at the command line in Kali Linux. It's, as the name implies, it's where we can put in commands right here at this line here. So to make this a little bit bigger, I'm going to do Control+ on my keyboard to make that prompt a little bit bigger so you can see it. I'm going to make this full screen on this side. And if you remember in one of the other courses, we talked about I like to have the instructions on the left side and I work on the right. If I had a dual monitor setup, I would have a left screen with all of my notes. My work screen is to the right of my desk or in the center. So we have the post-installation setup that we're trying to complete here. And it says that we can do this here by doing a couple of commands. I'm going to do sudo, which is superuser do apt update, and I'm going to see if there are any updates available. And anytime I use the superuser account Kali, anytime I use sudo, it asks me for the password, and we know that the password for Kali is Kali. And it says I didn't type that properly, so I'll do that again. And it says it's looking for all the related updates. So if you want to see that, I'm going to use Control- to make that screen a little bit smaller, just so you can see what that looks like without all the pagination. So it's looking for all the related updates. And then I'm going to do some housekeeping on this side here. So we're updating the system by putting in this command, and we're going to give it a moment to find all the available updates. So Kali is done. It says that it looked for all the available updates. It says 543 packages can be upgraded. I can run this command to see the list of packages, but I'm going to go ahead and just try and update them all. So I'm going to go back here and do sudo, which is super user do apt upgrade, and see if there's anything I need to do there. I hit enter, and because we were all set up with the last sudo command, it says after this operation 500 megabytes of additional disk space will be used. Do I want to continue? I'm going to say yes with the Y, and it's going to do its work, and we're just going to let Kali Linux update, and I'll hold on for a moment and come back after it's done. So that took a while, and by a while I mean about 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes. I stepped away from the terminal after waiting for about 5 minutes. It turns out there were quite a few of upgrades to be applied here, and it took a little bit longer than expected. So the point here is to make sure that you regularly update Kali to ensure you have the latest features and security fixes. And you can visit kali.org docs virtualization to get a little bit more information about the installation process and learn more about Kali Linux in general. But back to the update, sudo app update. That's what we did before. Let's take a look at that again to make sure everything is fine. We're going to run this command, and it says, of course, sudo is super user do, so we have to put in the password. Let's just make sure I'm selected here. I may have to retype that again. It does, and now I have it right. And it's going to go out and see if there were any updates available, and it's reading the package list. Now it says all packages are up to date, so we know that our update and upgrade was done successfully. And alternatively, I just wanted to let you know that you could have combined these two commands into one command in Linux. So you have sudo apt update &&. You combine two messages or two commands, and then the -y was the flag that says do you want to say yes or no, and in our case it was a yes. So I don't have to do these line by line or command by command. I can update these or combine them with the ampersand to make sure all packages are up to date. So here we are, we're completed. That's it. You have successfully downloaded, installed, and configured Kali Linux on your VirtualBox. You now have your virtual pen testing environment. We're going to go through a couple of commands like ping and traceroute and dig and ifconfig to get Kali Linux prepared, and then we'll get into the offensive security by hitting some of the target machines like Ubuntu, Windows 10, and Windows 7. So I'll see you at the next lesson.